energy, energy, energy. Let's talk about the word energy. So, energy is a noun, which means it refers to a person, place, thing, or idea. In everyday usage, people often say things like, "I'm running low on energy," meaning they're feeling tired, or "the concert had high energy," implying that it was very lively and engaging. You might also use the word energy in phrases like, "Renewable energy is the future," referring to a type of power source. A special note about this word is that it can be used in different ways depending on its context. So it's worth paying attention to the surrounding words and ideas when using energy. Here are 3 practical example sentences using the word energy, along with their respective contexts. At the annual environmental conference, the keynote speaker emphasized the importance of renewable energy sources in reducing our carbon footprint and promoting sustainable development. In this formal usage, the word energy refers to a specific sector that has significant economic and ecological implications. On my morning run, I tried to harness some energy from the sunshine and clear skies. It really helped me get through the tough hill section. Here, in a casual conversation setting, the speaker uses the word energy to describe their physical and mental well-being, which is fueled by the positive atmosphere on that particular day. In our team meeting, we discussed the latest project updates and I suggested that we need more energy from all members. To meet the tight deadline, perhaps an extra coffee break or a brief brainstorming session would help stimulate ideas. In this business academic usage, the word energy refers to motivation, enthusiasm, and productivity among team members, which is essential for achieving their goals. Let me know if you have any further questions. So, you want to learn about this thing that gives us the power and ability to move around, think clearly and stay awake? It's what makes our bodies work. From the simplest movements like breathing and blinking, to more complex actions like running and learning new things. The main characteristics of this thing are that it makes us feel alive, alert and able to react quickly to situations. It's also what helps us perform physical tasks, like sports or even just getting out of bed in the morning. Some people call it a vital force, or simply the way our body functions. It's something we all have inside us, but can also lose if we're not careful, like when we don't get enough rest or eat well. Enforce, enforce, enforce. Let's talk about the word enforce. So, the part of speech for enforce is a verb, which means it's an action word that tells us what someone or something is doing. In common usage, enforce typically means to make sure that a rule, law, or decision is followed and carried out by everyone involved. You might hear phrases like, "The police will enforce the new traffic laws," or, "The school administration will enforce the new rules for cell phone use." One special note about the usage of enforce is that it can sometimes be confused with the similar sounding verb impose, which means to put a rule or law in place. However, when we say enforce, we're talking about making sure those rules are actually followed and obeyed, not just created. I'd be happy to provide you with some examples of how to use the word enforce in different contexts. So, for instance, if you're talking about laws and regulations, using enforce can add a sense of authority and seriousness, such as the government will enforce the new anti-littering law starting next month. Formal usage. This sentence is in a context where there's a need to emphasize that the rules are going to be strictly followed. On the other hand, if you're chatting with friends over coffee about something more casual, like, we'll have to enforce some ground rules for this game night, no more than 2 drinks per person. Quote, casual conversation usage. It shows how the word can be used in a relaxed setting where the tone is friendly and light. And lastly, if you're writing a report or a memo about policies within a company, using enforce can convey a sense of professionalism, such as in order to maintain our brand's integrity, we will enforce a strict policy against advertising false claims on social media. Business, academic usage. So, you're trying to learn what enforce means. Well, think of it like this. When we say that something is being enforced, we mean that rules or laws are being strictly followed and made sure to happen. The people in charge are making sure everyone does what they're supposed to do. And there are usually consequences for not following those rules. It's like having a referee in a game who makes sure the players stick to the rules, so everyone can play fairly. Some other words that have similar meanings are apply or carry out. But enforce usually implies that there's some kind of authority behind it, making sure things get done. Entity. 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 Let's talk about the word entity. As a noun, entity refers to a person, place, thing, or idea that has a distinct existence or identity. In common usage, you might hear people say things like, I'm still friends with an old colleague from my previous job. They're more than just a memory. They're an entity in my life. This shows how the word can refer to a person who is significant and memorable to us. You'll also see entity used in contexts such as business, e.g., the company is now an independent entity, or sports, e.g., she's been a key entity on the team this season. One special note about its usage is that entity can sometimes imply a sense of independence, separateness, or uniqueness, so it's often used to describe things or people that stand out in some way. In a formal setting such as a job interview or a presentation, you might say, the entity responsible for overseeing all company policies is the board of directors. This sentence uses entity to refer to an organization or group with a specific role. In a casual conversation while discussing politics or social issues, someone might say, I'm not sure what entity actually handles environmental cleanup in our city, but it's definitely not efficient. Here, entity is used more loosely to refer to any kind of organization or institution. In an academic paper or business report discussing data management, you might use the sentence, the entity relationship model allowed us to better understand and optimize our database structure. This example uses entity in a technical sense to refer to a specific concept or object within a larger system. So you want to know about something that is a self-contained being with its own characteristics and properties, right? Think of it like this. An entity is like a single unit that has its own unique identity and can exist independently. It's kind of like a thing, but not just any thing, more like a person, place, or object that stands on its own. For example, you might think of a country as an entity because it's got its own government, laws, and culture, even though it's made up of many people and places within it. In terms of similar concepts, you might also think of things like objects, substances, animals, or even ideas, anything that can be thought of as having its own existence and characteristics. As for what it does, an entity is often the main focus or subject in a conversation, story, or description, because it's the central thing being talked about or observed. Does that make sense?